Hey there folks. So in our previous video we set up a character that we can then press play, and using basic enhanced input we can now move forward and backward, right and left. So we've got some movement on our character, which is obviously going to help us start navigating the world. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at how jumping is working. So we're going to go all the way back to the start of the steps that we did, and hopefully you'll know what the basics of these are already, because in the last video we set up a movement input action. What we're going to do is we're going to set up some jump actions, we're going to link them to our mapping context, and we're going to have a look at how jump exists inside of our character and just put a bit more focus onto what options are available for characters when jumping and using the character movement component. Okay, so to start, what we're going to do is we're going to create ourselves a new input action. So we're going to go to input and input action, and we're going to go IA underscore, and this one I'm just going to keep it as jump. Now I do still have some of the third person content in here, so just to keep my content separate from the epic example content, I'm just putting demo at the end of it. You don't have to do that, but it just makes it easier in a moment when I show you things in the list to see which one's mine that I've created and which one's is epic's. If I click on that and have a look at the options, for now, I'm going to leave this at a digital ball. That's basically an on or an off, true or false. So for us, that's going to be a case of, am I pressing the jump button, yes or no? I don't really need any kind of scalar values. I don't need to know whether it's a value that's positive or negative. I just need to know whether the button is being pressed. I'm not going to use any triggers for now, because I'm going to actually do those inside of the mapping context in a moment. We'll just leave that as its default. We'll now go into the mapping context, and you can see I can minimize the move demo, and I can add another mapping. Always tends to, in 5.3 and 5.4, expand out all the other ones. So sometimes you do just have to minimize them down. But this one here, I'm going to go and find jump demo, the one I've just made. Now jump demo, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to press the listener button, and I'm going to press my spacebar to assign jump to that. And I'm not going to do the trigger at the moment. I'm going to leave that as it is. We'll come back to this and we'll have a look at what kind of triggers we can put onto our jump. Okay, so now if I go over to my base character, I don't actually need to do anything else about setting up the mapping context, because we know that our character already has all of that ready to go. I did it in the controller, and so because it's on the controller, whatever pawn that I use is going to have the options to use move demo and jump demo. So now in my character, I can come over here and I can look for jump demo. Remember, we want to use the event version. That's the one that gives us all of these additional pins here. And I've got this action value, which is basically a yes or no. Is the spacebar being pressed down or not? Now, there's a whole bunch of different options that we've got in here. So let's just keep it really, really simple just for now. And just know that in the character movement component, so if I go and click on that and scroll through, you can see there are loads of values and loads of abilities that are already linked to our character when it comes to moving. You can see obviously we've got walking values, there's all different stuff in here that handles crouching, and there's a whole section here about jumping and falling. Now there's also actions that we can actually call here that are linked to that character movement component. So if I right click and just type in jump, we have an event here called jump. Make the character jump on the next update. So we can click that and we can plug that in. And what's going to happen now is if I press the spacebar, so here we are, my character will jump into the air. There you go. So every time I press it, the character jumps into the air. And that means that obviously now I can start jumping around and exploring the world. But what about the actual values I was talking about with making this a little bit better, feel a little bit more like a proper jumping thing in a game? So if we expand out the enhanced input options, you can see we have a whole bunch of extra ones here. We're using triggered, and triggered will happen as soon as this has been told to happen, which for our purposes here, it's going to happen every single frame right at the moment we press it. We're going to keep on applying this jump, which is the jump Zed Velocity, so the upward velocity of 420 centimeters a second upwards. Now, all of that gets applied immediately. So there's actually some other values to do with jumping that are hidden away. They're not inside of this character movement. They're inside of the actual base character or the character themselves. So I'm going to click on the base character. And I'm going to just type in jump, and what you'll see is these are the jump options that are available not only in the character movement, so you can see all these ones, but there's also a section here called character. So that's not the character movement component, that's the character itself. And we've got this one here called jump max hold time. So this is how long that 420 centimeters a second is going to be applied to our character for. If I change that from 0 is basically instantaneous, apply it once and don't apply it again. If I change that to 0.2 and then compile and press, I'm just going to press a little bit and then I'm going to press and hold. And you can see I've actually got different amounts of jump that are being applied to my character, because they could either have just a little bit applied to them or they can have quite a lot applied to them. Yeah. Now, if you want to see that happening a little bit more clearly, you can actually jump those values up to even higher just to see what the extremes are. You can see here, this is 1 second. And you can see for 1 second, my character has all of that jump velocity being assigned to them every single tick. But I could also just tap a little bit. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into here and have a look at these values. And you can see there's nothing here that actually makes my character stop jumping, which means as soon as I actually press that button, I keep on jumping the whole jump. So just as we can jump, we can also tell our character to stop jumping. And I will tend to put this one here into cancelled in case it stops this, and completed as well. And this means that when I release the key, it will stop applying this jump Z velocity. And that's really useful because now if I do a little press for key, I can do a little jump, or I can do a whole 1 second's worth of jump. Now 1 second, obviously, as I've said, is a very extreme value, but this, as you know, a little value that we can mess around with, this is what's going to give us the option to do, you know, a press and hold to get a bigger jump versus just little smaller control jumps. Yeah. So already for a platformer, this is going to feel a lot better. It's going to give us a lot of control. The next thing that I'm going to look at, we can do jump max count. Jump max count we can explore a little bit more in future videos, but it's just basically a very simple adding a double jump. Yeah, you want to add a double jump to your character, jump, jump again. Yeah, so increase that number as many times as you want. As a combination with your jump max hold time, we can use it for a double jump. I'm going to leave it at 1 just for now. But the things that I like to mess around with now in here is the jump Z velocity and also your air control. I'm just going to get rid of jump as well. And the last one is the gravity scale. So things that we can do to make our character feel a little bit better as they're jumping around. Because right now this is a very airy jump. You know, I'm flying around and I'm traversing a lot of the level in every single one of these jumps. So what I might want to do is I might want to look at the gravity scale. This isn't gravity for everything, it's just the gravity for just my character. So I've moved this from 1 to 1.8, and what you can see is I go up, but I snap back down a little bit quicker. Yeah, so I can use this one to give a little bit more weight to my character to jump them back down. Now this is where we start thinking about the metrics of our character actually jumping onto stuff. You know, can my character actually jump up onto the things that they need to? Should they be able to jump up onto there? If they should be able to, then make sure obviously the height is low enough for them. And we could go in here, add a little bit more jump Z velocity, you know, so that means that we push up a little bit more. And I'm just going to compile that. I've got a little bit of a glitch that happens sometimes where it shows that's only in 5.4, but it doesn't seem to actually cause any problems. But you can see here a little bit more to my jump, but I snap back down. So now if you're doing a platformer, this is starting to feel a little bit better, but it's still very airy. And we still, once we jump, so I'm going to jump off here, still not got any control. So I'm going to jump to the right. And as soon as I jump to the right, I'm going to press to the left. I'm holding down left there, but it doesn't actually give me any control to that. So with that one, what we can start thinking about is this air control value. And air control exists between a value of 0 to 1. So by default, we're saying we have like 5% air control. If I went with something like 0.8, so 80% air control, that would mean that my character has a lot more to their jump. Really useful in platformers and 2D games to be able to jump and then come back on yourself. Yeah, you want to be able to make that jump and then go, no, actually, I don't want to do that. So jumping around, if you've got any kind of jump puzzles in your game, this is something to think about, yeah, because a jump puzzle without the actual ability for your character controlling themselves and where they're landing is going to be really, really difficult for them to do. And the last little ones to think about here, so we've looked at air control. We might want to also add some lateral friction to our character, so this allows them to stop more quickly when braking. We're thinking about this in the air, so it's air friction. Maybe going up to like 20, 25 on this one. That gives you a little bit more. But play around with these values. This is one of those things that's really important to just experiment with and work out what works for you. We've also got our mass of our character, so depending on what actual character we've got. And a couple of other things that you can have a look at here, because I just want to make sure that you're aware of all the awesome things that are available in the character movement component when it comes to jumping. Now this jump, it does make our character jump straight away, yeah, but it also calls another thing. You can see here, event on jumped. So this will also call this. So anything you want to happen when you jump, you can do it in that event. And we also have an on landed. So if I just type in there you go, event on landed. So if there's something specific you want to do when your character actually lands from a jump or lands onto the floor, we can actually use this, and we can even break apart the hit result to find out like what we have landed on. Did we land on another actor? So, if on landed, did I land on an enemy? Did I land on a platform that falls away? We can start thinking about actually what happens at the end of our jump when we land on the floor. Okay, so at this point, our character now has moving around, forward and backward, left and right. We also have jump, probably a little bit still too much of an airy jump. This is where I'd start putting some platforms out in order to show my character how they can jump around. But you can see I can jump, I can do little jumps, and I can do quite a big jump, and I can use that for moving my character around. Maybe that lateral friction might need to come down a little bit, maybe my gravity might be too high, maybe the air control's too high, but think about what type of game it is. Yeah, if you are a third-person shooter, first-person shooter, maybe you want to be jumping and having that momentum to your jump. If it's a platformer, maybe you want to play with those air control values and the friction values in order to give the player way more control when moving around on something like platforming. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing to access more of my Unreal Engine content.